Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the comedy show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. I do like to throw in occasionally the fact that it's a comedy show right up top, because inevitably when we're sued...
We won't be funny. We just won't be funny for no. You're worried about being sued. Sorry, I thought it was more just we aren't funny for also the opening 15 minutes and people just turn it off. It's like, no, it's coming.
When the news is a school shooting in Texas, like, it's hard to come out the gate with some like sweet dick gags. Like, it's...
That's very true.
But no, I'm thinking further down the track. I'm thinking like, when we've said something incendiary down the track and you go, we're suing you for defamation because you're a news show. Well, actually... comedy, there's like 17 instances where George has said comedy news podcast about stuff and things.
And I don't know about you, Judge, but 17 times is a precedent.
That's a precedent. Yep. That's where we definitely get it. We understand the law.
Yep.
Or as much as the Supreme Court justices in the United States. Anyway, so
the law.
Top story. I am the law.
And the law. That was a terrible Judge Dredd impression. I am very, very sorry.
That's okay. I forgive you.
Thank you.
So you might have heard that Anthony Albanese is the current Prime Minister of Australia, has since been sworn in since our last episode. And let's start with
what a difference a week makes.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, it's taken a bit of getting used to, actually, when I'm listening to the news or something and the Prime Minister said blah, blah. I'm like, why don't I disagree with that? I'm like, oh yeah, because it's Anthony Albanese's the Prime Minister now, so that actually that makes sense.
And I'd say nothing, like, I know it's only been a week,
sure,
but like nothing batshit has happened. Like, the closest we've had batshit out of this parliament is that Tanya Plibersek had to apologise for calling Peter Dutton Lord Voldemort.
Which...
that's the biggest scandal we've had so far. And it's one of those
scandal.
You shouldn't say that about your colleagues.
Okay, yeah.
And he does look like Voldemort.
All right. Tanya should probably call him Voldemort, but I can. Peter Dutton,
oh my God,
you look like Voldemort, and we need to start collecting Horcruxes because it looks like he's going to be the leader of the Liberals by all accounts.
Even then, though, did you see actually how she did it? Like how she said he looked like Voldemort. Like, it wasn't just Peter Dutton, he looks like Voldemort. It was phrased like that he bears a striking, fans of Harry Potter will notice a striking resemblance, and I think it'll be bad if, on the news every night, children are terrified by what they see. It was an even more like twist the knife in jive, where I was like, oh, bravo, that actually, because he's probably heard Voldemort jokes for years, but that cuts different. It's a champagne burn.
I get it. You shouldn't be making fun of someone's appearance because it's like, it's politics. It's not, they're not movie stars or whatever. But I think the fact that he looks like a cartoon supervillain and
boss advocating making fun of movie stars for their looks. No, 2022.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I know what you're saying.
If it's like a public figure, I guess a politician and the work that they do should be completely decoupled from their appearance, right? Like, those two things should not, and a politician's appearance in principle shouldn't matter whatsoever, because that's not what they're there to do. They're not there to look pretty. They're there to do a job, which is to, in Peter Dutton's case, remove the soul of the country. But through his various dementors and dark magic tricks. But
there's plenty
in the case of Peter Dutton, I would make an exception because he is genuinely the Lord of Darkness. Like, he looks like it, and his policies and opinions reflect that.
Yes, definitely. Which is why it's been fascinating to hear them talk over this past week, because I know this hasn't happened yet, but everyone said that Peter Dutton is the front runner and potentially unopposed front runner to be leader of the Liberal Party.
Why? What dark magic? What spell has he cast? What does he have on his fellow members of the Liberal Party for them to look at him and go, yeah, this is the charismatic son of a bitch that's going to get us over the line in 36 months. What an absolute fucking winner. What a star to hitch my wagon to. Peter Voldemort fucking Dutton. That's the guy. Everyone in unison said, who should we pick? Okay, we'll say 3, 2, 1. Peter Dutton. Oh my God. How did we all get there at the same time?
I think it's worse than that, George. I don't think it went down like that. It is more everyone's like, Jesus fucking Christ, this is such a trash fire. And no one wants to put their hand up. Peter did. And the only way he can win any sort of popularity contest is if there's no other choice. So I think that really doesn't bode well for who you want to lead your party into the biggest popularity contest of the fucking country outside Triple J's Hottest 100.
Default.
Yeah, it's absolutely bananas that he might be in charge. But because, I think I said this last week. You want an even more unpopular leader. Yeah, that's the way to go. Good strategy, bro. Let's see if it pays off for you.
The problem with Scott Morrison was that he was too popular.
Oh, way too popular.
People just loved him too much as a guy. Much. And so that's why we should replace him with Peter Dutton. He's a little bit less likable, but he is a steady hand.
Yes. So it's amazing how the discourse this past week has been around how, not so much how, but that he is planning to soften his image, which I can't wait to see this. This is going to be great.
Scott Morrison's puppies. Scott Morrison's empathy coach just jumped off a bridge. He's just like, I can't take it anymore. I can't do this.
And that, the way that they've been broaching that topic, I just found a bit interesting. Like Peter Dutton was quoted this week as talking about how anytime he has his public persona or public relationship to the public has always been in the context of doing hard jobs of I was the person who and he made a point to be mentioning like I'm the person who had to deport child sex traffickers, and when I was in the police I was always talking about murders and sexual assaults. I'm like, okay, Peter, like you just you're going out of your way to be bringing up some dark shit. But I mean, you do you, bro. I'll be interested to see, I don't know, maybe he crochets. I don't know. I want to see what's the thing. What's the softened image thing? Like what's his Boris Johnson likes to paint buses like scapegoat hobby that he's going to try and throw out there.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he enjoys raw chicken curries, just like our former prime minister. I don't know what it's going to take.
Maybe building boats. Maybe building model boats. So when you start Googling Peter Dutton boats, you get something different.
Yes, yeah, he did like the Boris Johnson bus thing. Yes.
Yeah. So there you go, Peter. You can have that one for free.
I can't remember. It was one of the Murdoch press papers. There was during the election campaign, there was a profile of Peter Dutton holding his wife's hand. He just kind of looks like he's wearing a skin suit. Like, I understand why people believe in reptilians now when I look at Peter Dutton. Anyway, but so he's holding his wife's hand, and the quote is above the fold, "He is not a monster," which is
that was from a few years ago, wasn't it?
Was it from a few years ago?
That wasn't this campaign, but yeah, they had to.
I just saw it recently.
To run that, right? It comes up every election because you know what? It's evergreen.
What a cool and normal thing to have to say about the presumed leader of the opposition. Hey, he's not a monster. He's just a regular human being. Okay, it's just a cool and normal thing that we say about people all the time. Is that
he is literally
he's not a serial killer. Hey, he's not a serial killer. He's not Ted Bundy. Okay, the guy is just a guy.
Yeah.
I don't know why I have to feel as though I have to keep telling you this.
And what's amazing is it was clearly very effective because I see it come up every election. That's how good it was. The message stuck so well that we had to have it stick again. And then another time. I don't know which election it was, but it's just insane.
I just feel as though, we owe him an apology. It's not Voldemort for the comparisons to Peter Dutton because,
I mean, he's been dealing with a lot with the whole JK situation right
Voldemort, now. So, it's not really fair on Voldemort to make these sort of associations with, Peter Dutton. I don't think that's the sort of thing that people really appreciate is saying nasty things about public figures like this. It's not what the Australian public wants, Tom.
No. Voldemort just wants to be left in peace with his snake face and doesn't want anything to do with home affairs or, maybe channeling some money into councils that you probably shouldn't have or, suing activists for mean tweets.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that.
Let's jump back to that a little bit because also with the whole Tanya Plibersek Voldemort comparison thing that happened this week, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said...
Oh, feels good. Feels good to say.
It does feel good, doesn't it? That she should apologise for making the statement. It wasn't appropriate, yada, yada, yada. And apparently Tanya Plibersek has since apologised and Peter Dutton said, she's apologised, I've accepted it. Like insults like that roll off a duck's back. Water off a duck's back. But you listeners might remember that Peter Dutton famously sued a activist on Twitter for a mean tweet about him.
Yes.
For an insult.
So Shane Barzy, I believe it was, recently, had the case dropped against him. So he called Peter Dutton.
Peter lost appeal. No, he lost the appeal.
The appeal.
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, no. Shane Barzy won his appeal.
Yes.
Because initially, Peter Dutton did win the
Peter
defamation
Dutton won
suit.
the case.
And
Shane
Barzy would
appealed.
have had to have paid him like $50,000 or something like that. And he appealed it. And a judge was like, nah, Peter.
Yeah.
Jog on.
So
we spend way too much time together. I think that's it being official.
Yeah. I don't. You're the only person I see outside of the house, Tom. It's you and Adam. That's it. Mate, we were caught up the other day.
Even acknowledged Adam's not here.
Adam's not here. He's off. Can we talk about what he's off? He's off on a holiday.
Off on a holiday.
And nothing else is happening. I'm sure.
Absolutely nothing big has happened in his
life. Huge announcements, life-changing.
Absolutely nothing.
I'm sure we'll leave that for him to talk about or not talk about at the appropriate juncture. He's not here. He's fine. He's off in paradise. No one feels sorry for Adam. We were at Gabs the other day, the Great Australian Beer Spectacular, and we were there.
Spectacular, George. Spectacular.
Is that real? Is that what?
Yes, that's real.
Oh, God damn it. Spectacular. And we were there, you, me, your lovely fiance Alice, and our friend Suzanne. And she said to me, she asked me, "Hey, what's up? What you been up to?" And I just looked at her. I was like, nothing. It's been, it's this. It's work and university and like this and seeing you now. That's the thing that's up. These are all of the things that have happened. Nothing else has happened.
We're boring men in our 30s.
Oh my Christ. I was like, no, but I was just like, no, I think she's up to date with all the dog news. No, that's it. There's nothing else going on in my life. That's terrible. That's so embarrassing.
Oh, I find myself in pits like that as well, especially when I'm talking to someone like, who's not interested in gaming and tech stuff. Because I'll be like, what's up with you? I was like, I was reading about the new AMD CPUs. That's all sounding real cool. I picked up Elden Ring. Elden Ring's fun. I'll have shit to talk about. But if someone's like absolutely not interested in that sort of stuff, I'm like, what work?
What do I looking at a lot of spreadsheets? A lot of spreadsheets. Did a scatter plot and I introduced a jitter so you could see all the data points more easily.
Okay, let's not get back into spreadsheet chat. We copped some shit for that. So let's just... We also got some love, so we got to pick our audience, clearly.
That's all right. I did a box and whisker plot manually. That was fun. So to show the standard deviation. So, wait. I got so lost. So nothing's going on in my life. We're at Gabs. Before that,
Peter Dutton, Shane Barzy. So the tweet was Shane Barzy said something about Peter Dutton being a rape apologist, and that's what he was sued for defamation. Yeah. Anyway, so Peter
that
had made comments around like talking about false claims of sexual assault around refugees. I think.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
It's not a good statement.
saying that refugees were, I believe the quote was, trying it on from memory. Yeah, not shit.
Ouch.
Really shit tweet, Peter. This ain't it, bro. This is not the take.
Yeah, not great.
But yeah, so Shane Barzy, how do we get onto that? We're going backwards. Shane Barzy.
Peter Dutton had said that, water off a duck's back for an insult like Voldemort,
yes.
saying like, I got a thicker skin than that. And then, no, you took a dude to court over a mean tweet once.
Remember when you sued a guy with sub 1,000 followers for a mean tweet that time?
Yeah, remember when you did that, Peter? Yeah, remember when you made the insult that you sued over way more known by suing about it? Because the rest of us probably wouldn't have seen it, because I think it had like 15 retweets before it was deleted. So, like, ever since the Ben Roberts-Smith trial started, I feel everyone's just suddenly like, wait, I can amplify my own bad reputation?
Yes.
Rubbing my hands together. Let's do it.
All right, let's sue for defamation. Have you heard of the Streisand effect? I don't care. Let's go. Yeah. Balls deep. Let's sue. Who doesn't burn hard? Who amongst us? Let he who has not burned a hard drive in the backyard as the warm red glow of regret spreads across his face. Let he amongst us who hasn't done that cast the first stone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Normal, cool, and normal. So
definitely cool and normal.
Google Ben Roberts-Smith if you want to understand that joke. So,
I suppose. Yeah, sorry.
Anthony Albanese went to got sworn in, went off to this conference in Japan. There was a lot of backslapping with him and Biden. They seemed to be getting on. Joe Biden knew his name rather than calling him that fellow from Down Under, which was nice.
Fella Down Under, yep.
Unlike Scott Morrison. And Penny Wong has made some inroads, in Fiji with the sort of Pacific Island nations with efforts to try and repair that relationship. Which is all good. Like, that all seems like cool and normal, reasonable things for a new government to be doing. But I am seeing a lot of tweets like, so proud of this government. They've done more in the last 3 days than this last government did in 3 years. And like, oh my God, they're so fucking good. Let me just cut the balls, Anthony. Like, oh God, what a hero. And it's like, guys. Like, we all agree, it's good that Scott Morrison's out. Anthony Albanese seems like completely unqualified, an unqualified statement to say that he is a better human in every respect than Scott Morrison. And better leader, better prime minister. I think it's going to be better that he's in. But let's all just pump the brakes on the unqualified praise.
For him, right?
Yeah. Did you get this feeling as well? I feel like we still want to hold them to account, guys. Like, we want to push them more on climate change from where they are and things like that. Let's not start kissing their asses too much.
I felt it very strongly in news this week. Remember the Tamil family we talked about a while ago.
The Biloela.
Yeah. They were allowed to return home. Back to
their home
Queensland.
In Queensland.
Yeah, back to their home in Queensland. I think still on bridging visas or whatever, so it's not like a permanent residence or whatever, allowment, but out of detention and back home. And so great, excellent news. That's a great thing to happen for them. But I saw it as quite a bit of a social media stunt in that there was a photo of
Jim Chalmers.
Oh God, I have to remember a whole bunch of names. Jim Chalmers, who's now in charge of that sort of stuff, being on the phone, smiling and saying we've just said that they're allowed to go, and everyone's being like, yes, woo, do it. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And I've seen other people saying this as well, be like, yeah, great, excellent. What about the rest of them though? Yeah. Keep at it. Keep fucking at it. And it's you got to keep up that sort of thing. You can't just be like, yes, heroes, 10 out of 10. You let this one family go back home. Objectively a good thing, but
let's not take our eyes off the prize, guys.
Yeah, it's the whole thing of don't tell people your New Year's resolutions, because just telling them that you've got them gives you the dopamine hit, and then you won't do them. Right? It's don't give them let's not give them an Order of Australia for literally that. Let's push them to maybe get all the asylum seekers out of detention.
It does have that feeling of Obama accepting a Nobel Peace Prize, where you're like, I mean, great, but let's just chill, because he's
about the drone.
Let's talk about the drone war. It definitely does have that feeling about. And I also kind of want to be like, guys, chill. You people that are slapping them so hard on the back on Twitter will also be the same people 2.5 years from now that will be criticizing them for all the things that they didn't come through on. So just everyone just take a breath. Everyone just relax. It's good that they're in. It's much better than the alternative. But everyone just take a deep breath. And in that vein, it is interesting to note that Labor has picked up a few seats since we talked last. So
yes,
they're currently...
what a difference a week makes, right?
Yes.
It's suddenly looking quite different.
So it looks like they may be able to govern in their own right. The current count is at 75 out of 76 seats needed to govern in the majority. So, and there's one seat which I really want to discuss.
Yeah, of the 3 seats left in doubt,
yes,
one of them is polling as being very likely to go to Labor.
So that's McNamara.
Not a guarantee, but McNamara, not a guarantee, but pretty likely. So it seems like
here's the thing.
It's an inevitability they'll get the 76 seats.
So the thing is, you're still going to have to negotiate with the crossbench, because if like someone's off with the flu or something, you still want to be able to, you need to have some sort of like guarantee of supply. A majority of like on 76 is like the slimmest majority that one could feasibly have and be a majority government. So
default.
Yeah, it is interesting though that like, Tanya Plibersek on the ABC, I know we've talked about this last week, but like, when they're like, what did Labor do wrong, Tanya? Like, how did Labor
fuck up winning so hard?
How'd you fuck this up, Tanya? And she's like, we won. My guy's going to be the prime minister. And like, as it turns out, they're probably going to govern in the majority now. So it's like undisputedly a victory, but there you go. The seat of McNamara is interesting because the way the preferences work might flip this to either Greens or Labor. So
all right, listeners, pop a no-dos. This is going to get technical and probably pretty boring.
This is going to get technical and probably pretty boring is the alternate title of the show, I think. Let's
talk about statistical preference voting.
Okay, so in the seat of McNamara, the ALP is leading. So the current vote count is on a two-party preferred basis is 38.5% Liberal, okay, and 61.5% ALP. So looking at that, you'd sort of go, okay, well, it seems like a shoo-in. Why hasn't it been called? It's because they're still trying to work out the first and second preferences between the Greens and Labor. And so it could flip. So depending on who comes third, it might flip those preferences more to Greens, and then Greens would actually win the seat away from Labor. Or it could be Labor with the Greens as the next preference along. So it's kind of hard to tell at this stage.
I only sort of properly, and this is shameful because I've been participating in elections since 2007, and that I only just this election cycle kind of properly got it, is that like, I was initially had preferential voting explained to me to be like, you vote one, this person, and they add up all the ones, and the person with the least ones gets knocked out off, and all their twos get added to them or whatever. But it's even slightly it's more complicated than that, in that those second preferences aren't a whole vote. They're like a decimal point of a vote.
I didn't know this.
So that's I only sort of learned this recently. So your second preference becomes a first preference vote, but only like 80% of one, or like down and down and down. So the winner of the seat is the actual top average of every voter.
As someone who's studying statistics right now, this is making me very horny.
Oh, yeah, amazing, right?
We're going to scatter pot ready to go, mate.
But so it's how that the Greens could jump back in that sense, if like enough of those decimal preferences add up to a higher total than all the first preferences plus any like on-flow decimals there. But it's why the ALP probably also are in for a good shot, because if it comes down to being the Liberal candidate getting knocked out, which seems likely, then those preferences, Liberal voters are probably more likely to be preferencing a Labor government than a Greens government. I know we've seen in some seats this election, though, that like a Greens candidate took a Liberal person out, so like unheard of in history.
Which is nuts.
But that's sort of how it works. So it's interesting to sort of look at it that way, and it made me a bit of a stats nerd as well, sort of at the time. I see why Anthony Green is just so chipper all the time.
He's just very excited about spreadsheets. He's got a data board, Tom.
Yeah, so excited about just counting votes.
Yeah, so currently it's showing, as of a few hours ago, the three candidate preferred count data shows the preferences from 5 lowest polling candidates are running 17.6% to Labor, 35.4% to the Greens, and 47% to Liberal. So the count then ends up incredibly close on who will finish third, and thus that determines the winner.
Yeah,
if
who comes
during
third?
the distribution of preferences, the Greens or Liberals finish third, Labor wins. If Labor slips to third, then the Greens win. At this stage, Labor finishing third looks the least likely outcome, but it cannot be ruled out. There will be a major count of outstanding declaration votes on Monday, the 30th of May, which should clarify the results.
Yeah, so tomorrow they're getting some more in of early voting and like all the kind of more complicated votes, like, if you're out of area and all that sort of stuff.
So it looks like if that's the case, Josh Burns is likely to retain his seat for the Labor Party, and then thus Labor will be governing in the majority with 76 seats. Now, the other two seats that are still in doubt are Deakin and Gilmore, which are leaning ever so slightly Liberal. And I just wanted to mention that because Deakin
ever so slightly
is my mum's old, so she's now in Deakin. So she was in Menzies and then she got like reapportioned to Deakin. Sort of move things around a little bit. Extremely thoroughly, very Liberal. Michael Sukar has been in there for donkey's years, and he is currently leading with 50.4% of the vote.
655 votes the ABC has here is what he's leading.
Is the margin.
Under 1,000 is so close.
It's so close. And the other guy, the Labor Party guy, Matt Gregg, looks like our age. Like he just looks like some guy who the Labor Party put up in there to lose just because they wanted to have a candidate in there just in case. And, it's on a knife's edge. It really could go sort of one way or the other. But previously it was a very safe Liberal seat. So like the fact that seats like this are even in question, even if they get won by the Liberals, it's just wild. It's so fucking crazy. I cannot emphasize how much people have just absolutely shat on the Liberals this time round. Like if the preferences and the flows aren't all like, even if there has been a slight loss in the primary vote to Labor, like the loss of the primary vote to the Liberals has been staggering. It's been outstanding. Everyone and their mum agrees that like Liberals should not be in government. Whereas the Nationals, who they're in coalition with, don't seem to have lost any seats. That's been quite, has there been any? Not none, but like I don't think they've lost very many compared to the Liberals.
Not that I've seen. You got to really break it down because they say coalition, they lump them all together in like the main sort of tallies. So bit tricky there. But it's just interesting in that, that's what we should be reminding if Peter Dutton becomes the leader of the party or for the Liberals. That every interview for the next 3 years should be like open with the question of, so remember how your party got absolutely dumped on at the last election. What are you doing to change that?
Yes.
Like constantly remind them just how much they've eaten shit.
Given that you're a big old piece of shit, what are you going to do differently? Should be the way that every question is phrased from now on. And their response has been Peter Dutton. That's how we'll get likable again. We'll ride on the coattails of the most likable, comfy, snuggly teddy bear of a politician there ever was.
Peter Dutton,
motherfucking Dutton.
Yeah, we're going to Peter Dutton harder than we've ever Peter Dutton before.
That's the problem, Tom, is that we weren't conservative enough. That was the problem. If you listen to the commentators, the mad radical left, 1,000 days, that's what Paul Kelly said.
Oh, the 1,000 days of resistance?
1,000 days of resistance begins now. And it's like, no.
Oh, wow.
Come on, guys. Just to take a deep breath. I think you're retreating to the bunkers a little bit too early. Just like, I don't think anyone's problem was that the right wing wasn't right wing extremist enough. I think if anything, this proves like you've all those like rich Liberal Party voters who lived in leafy inner eastern suburbs were just kind of like, I think you guys are a little bit too extremist. Like, I still want tax cuts, but I do want something done about climate change. Like, I have a property portfolio, but I still want something done about climate change. And that's why they voted teal, right? Like,
I want all my tax cuts, but also, like, gay people are fine.
I'm fine with gay people.
Like, stop all that. Like,
I'm a millionaire. What do I care about gay people? Why would I care?
I'm a millionaire, but also I'm an atheist.
Yeah.
So let's like roll back all the religious dogma. Like, can we just get rid of that?
Yeah. It's not that they've gone like, these teal seats have gone like swung for the Greens or gone far left. They're just kind of like, I don't care about any of this culture war nonsense. Like, I've got an MBA. like I still work at, ExxonMobil or whatever. Oh, no, maybe not ExxonMobil, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I have 8 Rolexes, but
I got
also
a property
like,
portfolio, but I'm not a monster.
yeah.
And the Liberal Party said, "Great, here's Peter Dutton." Like, I don't think you're really hearing I don't think you're really picking up what I'm putting down here, guys.
I'll say there were 2 lessons there were 2 lessons they could have learnt from that, and they learnt the wrong one.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
At every point, they always do.
But yeah, so it's interesting how, the likelihood of the Labor Party getting the majority, the 76 plus seats, depending on how those knife edge ones go as well, it means they can govern in their own right, which it does make me go, shoot, just a little bit. Because I was, when we saw, 4 Green seats in the House of Reps, and also these, the teal independents and all that sort of stuff coming in, to be like, I want them to have a balance of power, or at least more, for their vote to matter more in this parliament, which if they can govern outright, it softens that, which is disappointing, but I guess this is one hell of a baby step though. Right? There's a baby leap in the right direction.
Given that the teal independents, who are very focused on climate change, and the Greens, if they are not in the crossbench, I think it's a worse outcome for the climate, because Labor's plan on climate change policy, whilst better, I think it's a 43% reduction by 2030.
Yeah, I think so. Oh no, I think it's less than that.
43%. I have to double check.
I can check it, but
if you wouldn't mind. 43% reduction by whenever it is, 2030, 2050. Is still well short of where it needs to be. And I think even the teal independents had a 50% reduction plan that they were sort of running on as well. So I think as someone who's, one of my chief concerns is climate change and where things are going in the immediate future, in the next sort of 10 to 20 years, the things that we do now are going to have massive outsized impacts on what happens later. I don't know. I think it's a worse...
Sorry, you were correct. 43% by 2030.
By 2030, which is still very ambitious compared to where the previous government was. As of 3 weeks ago, it's a lot more. It's a plan that is a lot more ambitious than what it was then. But it's still, I think, likely to fall short of what's probably needed. So I'm kind of. It's good that Anthony Albanese is the Prime Minister, but I kind of wish there was a little bit more pressure from a minority government to sort of push them a little bit further left on climate change. I'm a bit disappointed, to be honest.
But I guess, but hopefully, fingers crossed, but then again, as we've also seen with the Liberal Party now, that what would seem like the most obvious lesson isn't the one they like to learn. But maybe the Labor Party would see just how close they got, that how close to the line it had to get for them to be governing in a majority, because of these issues, pushing votes in other directions.
Yeah.
Maybe they need to be doing things that appeal to those voters so as they can stay in power.
I mean,
that'd be nice. That's the advice that I'd be giving them were I in the room, but we'll see, I guess, what happens with that.
That's the whole idea, right, of preferential voting, is because you can see where your preference flows are coming from. So if Labor seats can see an increased amount of their preference flows are coming from the Greens, they can sort of go, okay, well, yes, we've been elected in our own right, but clearly a huge, it's not insignificant contingent of the voting public wants us to be further left than we are. And the reason that they're voting for us is because we have the actual chance of standing up a government, whereas others don't. So it's, I hope they are consultative. I think Labor, leftist parties in general, are probably more broad tent than right-wing governments are typically. So we'll see, but it would have been, I feel like, a bit of a slam dunk for the environment if it was a minority government with Teals and Greens making up the balance of power. I think they're still going to have to be involved in one way or another. Of course.
Like you say, if anyone's not in Parliament House to vote on a particular day, because it kind of has to be done in person. Remember that time when heaps of people knocked off early on a Friday, and then the opposition snuck some votes through, and people had to be rushing back to Canberra rushing back to Parliament House from the airport and shit.
Cheeky.
Funny stuff. Speaking of slam dunks for the environment, just because I thought this would be a little interesting thing before we move on to the sad. So the fourth Greens candidate to win a seat into this election, Stephen Bates, in the seat of Brisbane. So like three of the 4 Green seats are in Brisbane.
Which is wild, because like
of Brisbane. It's wild to think that it's Queensland that like did that, right?
We always make fun of Queensland for being like the hick state, and then Queensland's like, you bloody right-wing sociopaths only electing one Green.
Yeah. You
fascists.
So Stephen Bates as one is coming in as the 4th Greens member from the seat of Brisbane. Which is awesome. But just an interesting little a very interesting kind of situation for him in that, he's been very like on his campaign platform, talked a lot about like, obviously who he is and stuff like that. And he, he's a young guy, 29, works in retail, like, much more like a quote unquote everyday Australian than like a career politician and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, he resigned this week from his retail job because he won his seat, right? But he still had to work
shifts. He had to do a couple of
shifts. So you got to go in. So he still went into his retail job, and everyone's like, "You're gonna be in government." You're like, "Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Can I ring that up for you?"
Did you want fries with that?
All that sort of stuff. But also the salary he's about to get.
Yeah.
It's just wild to think that, so he's been elected and his salary has now quadrupled, he says. He's just like, yep, I'm suddenly going to be earning $211,000 a year.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think politicians get paid way too much. Like, it's amazing that I like that he's at least stuck to that conviction for now, to just be like, yeah, my salary is going to go up to $200K a year. That's insane.
That seems like a lot.
It's like, wow. And yeah, just as someone who worked retail for a long time, it was like, wow, I couldn't imagine just being like, 1 week, I'm a retail guy. The next week, oh wow, I did it. I'm suddenly on a $200K a year. Bye, job. Yeah, wow, just an insane. Like, what a good for him.
I love the idea.
Also, he says he's only ever previously spent 1 hour at Parliament House in Canberra previously in his life.
Nice.
Which is just a nice little fun story.
I like the idea of people working in Parliament House as representatives of government that aren't high-flying former lawyers. Like, I want there to be some scientists in there and some accountants and some, I don't know, farmers and like, retail
people who
workers.
Represent the community.
Yes.
Like, right? I guess that's
real
at its
people.
Base concept is what it's meant to be. But I guess as what Stephen Bates's point here sort of is, I'll quote him here because he says that the high salary of politicians is an indictment of our system that we create this political class that can be so out of touch with the rest of the country. So I guess it makes sense that, like, sure, Stephen Bates now in this election has gone in as a regular schmo and in there to work it. But then if you've been a politician for like several terms elected, whether or not you're like, in the government or the opposition or an independent or whatever, you're suddenly a decade of $200K a year. Like, that's the base salary of a federal MP. So like a decade of $200K a year, you are suddenly in a whole other class of people, and you now, like, you have a different experience of life than the people voting for you. And that's just I don't want to say by design per se, because it's just clearly just politicians probably get to decide how much money they get paid. And obviously if you're deciding your own salary, you're going to be like, all of it, please. But just it creates this system of the career wealthy politicians that are so out of touch.
So it's funny that you mentioned this. I saw something on Twitter previously. I guess it's from Christina Keneally.
Yes. Yep.
Labor we spoke about the lady. Was she running for the seat of Fowler?
Fowler, parachuted her in. Yeah,
and then
didn't live there.
And she lost. So this is a quote from, I believe it's Christina Keneally. It says KK. I could be wrong about that. Laughing, Matt Canavan is a lovely bloke, though we don't agree on anything. Senator Ann Ruston and I used to often text each other keto recipes during question time, and Malcolm Roberts is one of the most chivalrous and polite human beings you will ever meet. Cameron Wilson then responds to that, politicians have more in common with each other than the people they represent. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly right. When you're a politician, even if you're a left-wing politician or a right-wing politician, you inevitably become part of the political class. Because like, how can earning 210 grand a year minimum, assuming there's no rorts, assuming there's no self-dealing or putting money in your back pocket, assuming that's the case, and you're only making off with 211 grand a year minimum, I think it does change you. I think it changes the way you see things. You have less in common with a retail worker making $20 an hour than you do with a guy on the other side of the aisle from you. And I think it creates a kind of, it's the same thing with journalism, why we're so frustrated oftentimes with journalists in the mainstream media. It's because they've got this chummy, it's all about access, right? You want the politicians to come on your show.
The relationship with the politician. I thought you were about to say like salaries, and I was like, mate, journalists don't get paid heaps.
No, not
like
not,
unless
not the,
you're
unless you're the popular, talking heads on TV sort of thing. But no, it's all about access, right? It's this chumminess that develops because inevitably the media needs the politician needs the media.
Yeah.
As the politician, I need you, the media, to get my talking points out there and drill them into the public's heads ad nauseum, right? And as the media, I need you, the politician, to come on my show so I've got access. If I really speak truth to power and tell you, hey, what you're doing is corrupt and fucked, and actually hold you to account, well, guess who's not likely to get a visit on their show going forward, right? So it creates this little Canberra bubble, this little insulated media cohabitation, sort of succubus, kind of relationship where you're...
Succubus? Do you mean symbiotic?
Sure, that works. Symbiotic works as well. No, but you know what I mean? Where it's like, it's a symbiosis where I need you and you need me and we're together in the same ecosystem. And you just kind of forget about the people that you represent. I think a lot of people go to Canberra with good intentions. Like this guy, Stephen Bates, seems like a good guy.
Yeah.
If he has 10 years, 15 years of 210 grand salary, indexed to inflation for the next 10, 15 years, is he going to remember his roots as much as he did when he first started? I don't know. I think that just happens to people. I think you go in with the best intentions, and the system is designed in such a way as to break you down and make you.
So hopefully a Greens candidate, Greens politician will probably remember.
You'd hope so.
Point taken.
You'd hope so, but like because Adam Bant's been around for a long time, and I don't think he's changed in any sort of really substantial ways. But you don't know. I see that a lot. You see politicians go in. There was a line in Rake. You remember the show Rake?
Yeah,
About, sort of law, lawyers and politics and stuff in New South Wales. It's a sort of Australian comedy show, and there's this line where one of the aides is talking to a politician, and she goes, "Didn't it used to be about the ideas? Like what? Oh no, it was the premier talking to another politician. She goes, it was played by Toni Collette, actually. And she goes, what happened to the ideas? Remember when it was about the ideas and not just us like trying to cover our own asses and move for like trying to escape from one scandal to the next and looking at the polling to see what I'm going to do and how do I survive? It used to be about the ideas. We thought we were going to like make people's lives better. And then we just got caught in the fucking rat race of it all. And we just kind of forgot about all of that. I think that really does happen to people.
Oh, yeah. Well, because sometimes the right decision isn't the one that's going to keep you in your 210K plus a year job.
Right.
And so, yeah, people rarely act outside their own self-interest, which is terrible.
Well, we always mention that Upton Sinclair
Oh.
quote where it's impossible to make a man realize something something that his salary is dependent on him not understanding. Yeah, it's exactly what it is.
But just to circle back about the need for access and just the symbiotic relationship of the media and government, I guess what you're saying, George, is it's really about ethics in politics journalism.
Good. You were sitting on that for a while, I feel like.
I was.
I appreciate you waiting for a gap in the conversation to bring that up. Thank you.
Amazing. All right. Do we want to talk about Angus Taylor or do we want to leave Australia behind?
Angus Taylor. So, yeah, we can cover it pretty briefly. This is a scandal that had sort of escaped my attention somewhat. But
we might have talked about it at the time.
At the time,
it was like 2019, briefly. I think, when this sort of all came out. Or 2017 was sort of when everything was going down. But I think Yeah, it was a few years ago.
So
pre-pandemic, so at least 10 years ago.
If you believe the mainstream media that we just spent the last 10 minutes, kind of criticizing, it looks as though the former Energy Minister Angus Taylor is set to be the front runner to be the shadow treasury, shadow portfolio under Peter Dutton, which is fine.
Ultimate shadow.
The shadow. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Peter Dutton, the dark shadow over Parliament House.
So the Herald Sun and the Sunday Age can confirm that Dutton and Susan Ley will appear on Monday to be elected unopposed as leader and deputy leader of the party, with Senate leader Simon Birmingham and Senate deputy leader Michaelia Cash will remain in their current positions.
Oh, great. Susan Ley being the deputy leader as well. Miss... dear courts, please make it official that I don't have to care about children's future and can still do bad things to the environment, and that's not illegal, please.
So you're talking about the court case that was recently won by the Australian government, I suppose, where they said the Australian government had a duty of care to future generations by in order to act on climate change, and Susan Ley said.
Nope. I'd rather not, though.
I prefer not to, if that's okay. And they, so the coalition won that case in court.
Yep.
And so it seems as though the government does not have a duty of care to future, which is wild to say.
Why would it, George? Why would it, George? Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
I saw someone tweet today, if Susan Ley is the answer, what the hell was the question?
Burn. Good burn. But anyway, Angus Taylor,
so he's set to be shadow treasurer. And normally I don't care about these sorts of things because, you're not in government, get the fuck out. I don't need to. Why should I remember your name if you're not in government? Because you don't really affect anything. And I'm happy for you to live out in the wilderness. But until you get reelected again, and then I have to worry about remembering your portfolio and your name. But like Sauron, these things, if they're excommunicated. And they live, the darkness grows out in the distant wastelands of Mordor and grows powerful and will come back to bite you in the bum later. So let's talk a little bit about Angus Taylor and some of the things he's done in the past and how, frankly, incredibly fucking ridiculous it is that he would be shadow treasurer and that he is the person that the LNP are putting forward to be the treasurer. If they won government tomorrow for whatever reason, this is the guy that they would want running the money. Let me tell you why that's ridiculous. So, in 2019, there was a report from Crikey, which we'll link in our show notes, of course, everything you need to know about the water buyback scandal, which very conveniently named Watergate. It's the only other Watergate that I'm aware of that's not the Watergate break-in into the Watergate Hotel under Richard Nixon in the 1970s. It's a Watergate that's a completely different Watergate, which is about water.
Gotta stop putting gate on the end of things. Can we let that trend die?
Yeah, it's been 50 years. I think we could let it go.
Yeah.
There was in 2019, news emerged of a controversial water deal between the then government, LNP government, and a Cayman Islands-backed company with prior links to Energy Minister Angus Taylor, or the Energy Minister at the time, Angus Taylor. So. In 2017, the government made a $79 million water purchase from a company called Eastern Australia Agriculture, or EAA. Deals like this were a key part of the administration of the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, which we did talk about at the time was just a horrendous shit show, as it turned out. So the way that it worked at the time was to involve the government buying back water in the region from irrigators, which it then redistributes in order to improve efficiency and sustainability. So it sounds good, right? The government's going to buy the water back. We've had this water allowance that we've given out to everyone. If some of these people don't need these water, the government's going to buy it back from them, and then we can use it to, keep the water table nice and healthy. Sounds like a perfect plan. Not open to rorts in any way whatsoever.
I'm surprised they're even doing it then.
It sounds like this $79 million water purchase was done from a company called Eastern Australia Agriculture. So who was involved in Eastern Australian agriculture, but for one Angus Taylor, who was involved in founding the company.
Founding, I think, Eastern Australia Irrigation, of which EAA is a subsidiary.
Yes,
so,
correct.
it's always a company offshoot from another company, whatever. It's always how it works, right? And also Eastern Australia Irrigation is based in the Cayman Islands.
Mm-hmm. Nothing sus. And they donated $55,000 to the Liberals before the 2013 election, so 4 years prior to this. So we don't know for sure that anything suspect happened, but when a government minister sets up a company who sets up another company who they give a bunch of money to and is set up in the Cayman Islands, there are some question marks. Or there should be, in any case.
Yeah, definitely some question marks.
So, I mean, that's the extent of it. Obviously, the buybacks began under this regime in 2012, but this is something that they've been doing previously for some time. But the thing that's quite notable about it was that in 2017, almost $200 million worth of buybacks were approved without an open tender. And this is the thing that we've talked about a lot on the show, was that like whenever government money needs to be tapped as a resource for just about anything else, it needs to go through a very competitive tender process where there's 5 people bidding and then the government bids you down on price, and it's a whole rigmarole. It takes months. There's, assessments are evaluated on a complex matrix of 50 different criterion, and who's got the best tender for the government is the vendor that's going to be chosen. And there's all these strict rules around, you can't, no gifting, you can't do any sort of self-dealing, there's no conflicts of interest, you can't have like a family member or someone involved in the decision-making process. It's very thorough, okay? Government money is especially hard to come across because it's accountable to the people. It's taxpayer money. Except for...
Unless you make...
Unless you're mates.
Buddies.
$200 million worth of buybacks to go through without a tender in 2017. And this was like when corruption dollars actually meant something, when like $200 million was a lot of money before the pandemic, before Money Machine go brrr. It's a lot of fucking money to go into someone's pocket without a tender. And it just seems ludicrous that the guy who was potentially the face of this alleged self-dealing is now going to be the money guy under the next LNP government.
The money man.
It's legitimately like putting the fox in charge of the hen house and going, hey, be good.
Be good.
Be good.
Yeah. We know you founded Hen House previously.
Hen House International.
Yeah.
Which was all about sending hens directly into your mouth. But
into foxes' mouths. Yeah.
Based in the Cayman Islands. Has any legitimate business operation ever originated in the Cayman Islands? The whole reason that you put something in the Cayman Islands is because they have laws that shield you, the owner of said company, from disclosure and from taxes. Like the whole purpose of setting up a company there is suspect, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Surely there must be like, I don't know, local businesses, like the shop.
Bobby's
a
Cayman
shop
Islands,
somewhere, like,
cigarette dispensary.
like a little supermarket or something. Like people.
Sure, there must be some.
Yeah, so there must be some legitimate businesses that did originate in the Cayman Islands.
I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying it's unlikely. I'm sure the illegitimate businesses to legitimate businesses ratio in the Cayman Islands is higher than it otherwise would be in developed nations.
Yeah.
So incredibly fucked that we've all just kind of memory holds that. And that this guy is now...
There's just too much to keep track of. Although I think whenever I think of Angus Taylor, I think of when he or one of his staff forgot to swap Facebook accounts before congratulating himself on one of his own posts.
Yes.
Which is just
a good one.
Hall of Fame. That one should go in a museum.
Yeah, no, my man got caught on main on his main account.
Excellent. Great job, Angus.
What a guy.
What a guy.
So we'll just finish on a light little fun story at the end. School shooting in Texas.
Yep. Well, we didn't cover also, I guess this is, the second, I want to say just second mass shooting in the last few weeks, but I'm sure there's been ones that haven't hit as large international news, but there was also the one in Buffalo in New York.
Where a young
insane 4chan-y manifesto, racially motivated shooting was also quite horrific. So
he targeted a supermarket in Buffalo, New York, specifically because he understood it was well attended by African Americans. So deliberately went there to murder black people specifically.
And I saw that had fascist white supremacist bullshit written on his arms and gun or
but Tom,
something.
we live in a post-racial society. All of these woke people on the left making everything about race. We live in a post-racial society as long as you ignore the mass shootings from the neo-Nazis.
Yeah, of course.
You take that variable out of the equation. We live in a basically completely racially equitable system. What's that? The median assets owned by African Americans is 1/10 of that of white families. It's $70,000 as opposed to $700,000. No, that's normal. That's the system working completely as intended. There's no racial disparity. There's no difference whatsoever. Being black in America and being white in America is an argument that some people can make with a straight face.
It's absurd. I don't know. I don't know what to say at this point. I know, and we're two Australians just on the other side of the world, just gonna be talking condescendingly about you should take the guns away to the Americans, which is not helpful. But what else? I know,
and they've heard it all before.
What else have we got? I'm glad that I'm not just resigned to it. There's been a feeling that I've felt in this that I'm glad that it still disturbs me when stuff like this happens. Because, geez,
in the Texas shooting, it was literally it was a school shooting. I think it was 19 kids.
It was grade 4 age kids. I think they were 11, 6 to 11 or something.
Yeah.
It's horrific. Horrific.
19 children murdered, 2 teachers murdered. I don't know what it's going to take for this country to stop humping its fucking guns. I don't know what it's gonna if Sandy Hook didn't do it, this is not gonna do it. And Joe Biden saying we need to do something about this now. Man, if only someone was running this country
in charge. Yeah, I think I think what's it gonna take, George? It's gonna take a president and an executive and a congressional group that has a bit of a backbone. I think you phrased it really well the other night when we were talking about this, that sure, the way their system works, Joe Biden can't just snap his fingers and the Second Amendment's gone and guns are returned and all that sort of stuff. But there's shit that he could do that, executive orders or whatever, that could at least get smashed down in the courts or whatever. But I think you said it best in at least you'd get caught trying. And those are the baby steps that have to start.
On an executive level, here's what we're doing. We're banning high-capacity magazines. We're banning AR-15s. We're instituting a gun buyback program where you get twice back for every gun you put out into the system. And they'll probably get struck down by the conservative supermajority at the Supreme Court. But at least you might have a year where school children aren't getting shot in the fucking head, get caught trying. And then maybe you might win the midterms next time around rather than getting absolutely shit canned, which is what everyone's expecting. They go, Congress doesn't do anything. It's because you've got 50 senators and 2 of them are basically Republicans and you need 60 to do anything. So, of course, nothing's going to get fucking done because they don't want anything to get done. This is the system working perfectly. This is the system working as intended in that it distributes power to low population states. This is the whole argument about the Senate and how the Senate is constructed. But it is
and the electoral college and stuff.
Electoral college is just straight up dumb. But unless there is some sort of blue wave that comes through and delivers on a platter 65 Democratic senators, you're not going to get shit done. Or you repeal the filibuster. You get, it's literally, those are the options. So given, presuming that some magical majority is not just going to present itself, what are you going to do? What's the plan?
Yeah, seeing Biden just tweeting things like, I've had enough, we need to take action. I'm like,
oh, thanks, Joe. Thanks,
where's you, bro?
Yeah.
Do something. Anything. Even if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
do something.
Do something. Get caught trying.
Yeah, it's so fucking frustrating, but it's also just amazing to see. Like, I think I'm never not surprised at just the level of mental gymnastics or narratives that pro-gun Republican politicians, and even then just people in general in the States who are pro-guns and the Second Amendment and all that sort of stuff, that they go to like, after doing all the thoughts and prayers crap, because, they at least still have some sort of conscience to be like, we're not just going to say, it doesn't matter that children died. But then they come up with all these crazy batshit, just other reasons that things happened. Like, mental health has been a big one this time around now. Like, they're actually, rather than they're talking about, it's the mental health of the shooter. Why?
The mental health thing is a big thing, because all of the other arguments that they've used previously don't have any traction in this case, because they're like, the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Well, there were good guys with guns on the scene, and they took 90 minutes to get into the fucking building.
Do anything, yeah.
Right. So, there was a guy who was a security guard who was there, who was armed, who was out the front, and for whatever reason, wasn't able to prevent this guy with an AR-15 from getting into the school. Like, these places have, the kinds of drills that they're doing with these kids now, covering them with blood, getting them to hide while police stalk through the corridors. This is like just that, the preparation that they've had to build around themselves to try and insulate themselves from this horror shit show that they keep enduring is traumatic enough in itself. We're doing all of these things. We've got the armed guards at the school. We've got the security, the security doors. We've got, and Ted Cruz was saying the dumbest fucking shit this week about how there are too many entrances at schools. So what we're going to do is we're going to redo every school in America, so there's only one way in and one way out, and we should be able to trap them in the doors. Never mind if there's a fire.
An unlocked door was what caused it, George.
It was the unlocked door. It was not the proliferation of war weapons that mentally ill. This is the only country where this shit happens. I don't mean to get mad, Tom. I don't mean to get mad. But it's the only country where this happens. Okay? It's the only country. The only country where this happens. We had one gun massacre, the Port Arthur massacre. People know it by name. Okay? And then all the politicians went, man, it might get us fired, but we should probably ban these dumb fucking guns. Hey. And then they did. And then it was done.
Yep.
And then it was over.
And then
that was the end of it.
Nothing that categorizes as a mass shooting since.
Yeah.
But again, that's what I mean. Like, yes, we're Australians on the other side of the world just going, but it's just so...
But what is it? It's just, I don't understand the obsession that these fucking pricks have with the Constitution. It's a document written 250 years ago by a bunch of slave fuckers that didn't have the right to vote for women embedded as part of the document. A gun, back in those days, was a musket that could fire 1 round a minute and it would go 50 yards. They didn't have perfect clarity as to where things were going. This is a somewhat outdated document that requires some revision.
Right? And then on top of that, it's just like, they're fallible. Like, wouldn't you think, how many people who are all like, the Constitution is the Constitution is what we live by, freedom, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff, like founding fathers, etc., have also thought, if I showed George Washington my iPhone, it'd break his brain. Like, put that logic to use. Like, the very idea of these easily accessible, quite portable death machines.
If you showed him a VCR, you know what I mean? Like, forget an iPhone. If you showed him a tape deck from 1980, it would blow his fucking mind, okay? Because there's no possible way 1,000 years ago and from now we're going to be dealing with this same fucking document. No, it's in the document. Sorry, we have to. Really?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I just... and also, I saw someone make a really bleak realization where I was like, oh, shit, I hadn't thought of it like that either. Was they pointed out that, Columbine happened? I thought it's been at least 20 years, I think, easily, since Columbine. So they said that the drills that you talked about before, like the active shooter drills they put kids through in US schools, the people doing the shootings now, like this person this past week was 18, have been through all those drills. So they know the protocols.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
They now know that they now know what the responses are going to be and how to counter them, like whether or not they're actually considering all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that was a bleak realization that someone brought to my attention. I was like, oh my God, like, yeah,
the calls coming from inside the house. Columbine happened on the 20th of April, 1999. So yeah, just over 23 years ago.
23 years ago. Maybe it was Bowling for Columbine. They were saying it's 20 years old. Like came out 2002
it would have been
or whatever.
Shortly thereafter. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just Ted Cruz's an unlocked door.
The door. Honestly, it's like it's so fuck you, Ted Cruz. Shut the fuck up. Honestly, shut the fucking fuck up, Ted Cruz. You fucking lukewarm, room temperature IQ moron. The doors, bro. Shut the fuck up, dude. Yeah. It's so insulting. It's so insulting to people's intelligence to say that the problem that no other country has is the doors. What's the common factor? Let's do a statistical analysis. Let's a fucking scatter plot of the guns. Here are the guns, the country that has the most fucking guns in every corner of the fucking country, and also happens to be the ones with the mass shootings. Quelle fucking surprise. What? Look, there's a p-value of 0.05. What a fucking surprise. How could we possibly have known?
I mean, when he fucked off tried to fuck off to Cancun when Texas was freezing or whatever. Fuck, why didn't you just go and just don't come back?
Don't
come back.
Go
the same amount of stuff wouldn't happen. Like,
the same pricks that are pro-life, okay, will make a woman, will force them to give birth if they have their way with this Roe versus Wade decision. There'll be forced births all across the country. Women will be forced to drag these souls from the ether, bring them into the world. But if they get killed in a school shooting, that's the price of freedom. Fuck it. Freedom isn't free, bitch.
Oh, yeah. Like, once they're actually children, like, who cares about their lives? Fuck them.
How could you be pro-life and pro-gun? Do you not recognize that that's a fucking contradiction in terms?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah. Nothing really funny. Sort of talk about all that, I guess. Ted Cruz got yelled at in a restaurant in the last day or two over it.
I'm honestly like, there's things that I can't say on this podcast that I would like to say. I am completely fine with these people being accosted in everyday life. You're the party of freedom of speech. Okay, I am completely happy for people to stand outside your house and scream it and yell 24 hours of the day, and you're lucky that that's all they're doing. You're lucky that it's not a fucking revolution, that these people haven't revolted, that they're not sharpening the fucking guillotines. You're lucky all that they're doing is accosting you in restaurants and calling you a piece of shit and that there's blood on your hands. That you're lucky because there is blood on your hands. It's one thing if you're like, I think taxes should be higher. I think taxes should be lower. Let's have a spirited disagreement about it. Democracy. But that's not the pro argument that you're having is I'm okay with us having all of these guns in the country, even if it means little children die.
Yeah.
We're supposed
children
to
dying
that.
Is the price I'm happy to pay for the vote of people and the money of people who are pro-gun.
Yeah. And to me, that
Boil
makes
it to its simplest statement.
That makes you a despicable piece of shit. And if I see you in an Applebee's, dude, I'm going to yell at you. And you should expect that. That's what you do when you have pro-murder opinions.
Yep.
Yep. Anyway.
Yeah.
On that happy note.
Yep. On that incredibly happy note.
We just know, we know that nothing's going to change. We know that I know it's pointless to yell about it and scream about it and be unhappy about it. But as we've said on the show before, the dumb ideas that America has now are the ones that we'll have in 10 years. And we know this is the case because One Nation by Pauline Hanson's James Ashby.
The NRA trip.
Loose Unit was going over only just a few years ago to try and get tips and potentially money from the NRA to try and loosen our gun laws here in Australia. And I tell you what, I like our gun laws exactly where they fucking are. Thanks very much, James Ashby.
That's pretty great. I remember speaking back of retail experience before. I think might have said this before on the show or whatever. But I liked the fact that I was pretty confident that a customer who was getting a bit aggressive at me or whatever didn't have a gun in their bag.
Yeah.
Didn't have a pistol in their purse.
Yeah, that it's not even a consideration that I need to walk down the street and worry about someone having a gun. I saw this woman in this article about Greg Abbott, which we're sort of referencing without having actually spoken about it.
Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas.
Yeah, and he posted a picture with a bunch of women in tight jeans, blonde hair. You can sort of see them from behind, and they've all got handguns in a holster.
Oh, I think I've seen this picture. Yeah. They're just like walking around like open carry kind of look. Yeah.
And he posted this on Instagram under Governor Abbott and says, quote, "I bet they are Texans." And I guess he's proud of this image. Like, yeah, hot chicks with guns. Fuck yeah. But I look at that and I see a dystopia. I see a problem where people are walking around in what looks like a suburban open air street mall and they feel as though that in order to protect themselves in everyday life, they need to carry handguns, that at any moment they might be called upon to murder someone with a handgun, and that's just part of their normal everyday life. I see that as a fucking dystopia.
Yeah. I even wonder if they think about it like that. It's probably like, it's now been pushed so much to a degree where I think it's it'd be a political statement now.
Why else would you carry a gun but for the fact that you may need to use it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so
I think they've moved
phone,
beyond that.
Wallet,
consciously.
keys, murder weapon.
Yeah, I think they've moved beyond that consciously. It's now a thing of like, oh, people are wanting to take my guns away. Like, it's the same as if you wore a T-shirt that expresses your political opinion. Like, no, I'm going to open carry my gun because I'm allowed to, and I'm going to show my support for it. It's fucked. It's absolutely fucked. Like, if it's especially moved on from the I don't feel like, no, this isn't about needing to protect myself. I'm wearing a gun on my hip to own the libs. We've well and truly gone beyond the pale.
Oh, we've jumped the shark. Here's a funny joke. It's not a joke because it's true. There's no restriction on the amount of guns that you are able to own in Texas, right? You can own 11 squillion guns if you can afford them in Texas. There is a limit on the amount of dildos that you're allowed to own in Texas.
What?
You're able to own...
How many? Hang on.
Do you want to guess? I will guess.
Right,
I'll give you a highest, closest without going over. Price is Right rules.
Right. So I'm going to guess no more than 3.
6.
Wow. Okay. Cool. I all right.
It's a decent amount of dildos, but
on your Texas, you can use all those at once.
If you got a 7th dildo, that's too much, says the state of Texas. But if you got 50 Berettas, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even. It's madness. It's like it's untethered to reality. Like, if it was a car that I could drive down the street and drive into a crowd of people, like there was a license that you have to get to be able to own a car. You need to do a test. There's a bunch of log hours that you need to do practicing driving under supervision. You do a test, like, and only then, after dozens, hundreds of hours of practice, are you then entrusted with a car. That is not the case for a gun. If you're an 18-year-old kid and you're just like balls deep in Nietzsche and existential, like you're just really sad because you're an 18-year-old kid and you have no fucking clue about anything and you're really depressed and you want to just end everything and end the world, you can go and buy a gun. And there's nothing to stop you doing that. Like, I don't know. It's so broken. And I know the Americans know that. And I know the good Americans that are listening to this podcast are going, George, I know it's fucked. We have to live here. Yeah. I know, but it's like, I don't know what you guys can do about the fact that you live with 70 to 80 million extremists who vote. Voting age extremists. The Republican Party is a party of extremists. When they voted against, 200 Republicans voted against importing baby formula into the country as an emergency measure.
We haven't even talked about the baby formula shortage.
That was like weeks ago, and we just completely missed it. What they're saying is, go fuck yourself, die. And I don't know how you can vote I don't know how anyone can vote for someone like that. So at a certain point, you're doing this to yourselves.
They don't care about the babies once they're born.
You don't care.
Weirdly enough.
Who could lose a vote? Who in their right minds would vote against getting emergency baby formula for children when there's a shortage? I genuinely, it's like up is down, black is white.
I thought I've seen like in the vague perusing of US media that I've seen of that one of the angles that's being pushed around the baby formula thing is like on the right wing medias of like Fox News and all that kind of crap, is they're framing it being like, oh, it all goes to immigrants. They've made baby formula availability racist. Like they're making it
even
about.
Even if that were the case, which
so
having done no Googling, I'm sure is not the case. Even if that were the case, you want immigrants to starve to death? Baby children? You want them to die? Do. You want to kill children?
Yeah. Of course they do.
And they're like,
you shocked by this?
No, I just
it's fun.
I'm continually astounded by the moral depths that this party will go to. It keeps surprising me and you every time, because I think I have at a certain point, I think I've got my arms around it. Like, I get it. I understand it. Like, I understand you now. It's like, no, you will vote down good legislation that helps your people in order to own the libs. You will not only, cut off your nose to spite your face, you'll cut off your left arm to spite your face if it owns the libs. And at that point, like, you're just dangerous. You're like, it is actually beyond sensical. It's nonsensical.
Yeah. It's also just to make you even more mad, because I thought this rang a bell. You talked about the car and running people over, and you have to get a license or whatever. At least one state, Oklahoma, passed a law in 2021 or whatever to make it okay to drive into a protest group.
Yes, I remember.
If you believe you are, quote, fleeing from a riot under the reasonable belief that fleeing was necessary to protect the motor vehicle operator from serious death or injury. So similar to the whole, it's the doors. It's like, oh no, okay, we'd better like make it okay still to drive into protesters under only certain circumstances. Wink.
I don't know, man. Is it just that the country's so gerrymandered that they can't vote these pricks out? Like, the system has been completely captured? Is that what it is?
Oh, well, yeah, of course. Isn't there that weird expression of like, if there was mandatory voting, if they made it easier to vote, the Republicans would never win?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess so. Again, having done zero Googling, I reckon yes. Yeah.
But some people are voting for them. Some people are still voting they're choosing to vote Republican. And they're happily doing it, and they're not embarrassed.
Nope. Probably those people walking around with pistols on their hip.
On that note, we have been, we are, we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Vine. I don't know. Reddit?
Vine went out of business a long time ago, George.
Make sure you
got to catch up.
Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
And if you've made it this far, you're obviously a fan of the show. I would appreciate if you jumped on your podcatcher of choice and rated and reviewed us if you have the opportunity to do so, because it does help additional people find the show. And if there's one thing that we need, it is additional people.
Ruin someone's day. Send us to them as a prank.
Yeah. Find a right winger and just send them this link without any context, and just watch their heads fucking explode, as though they'd been shot with an AR-15. Thanks for listening. I'm just getting real. It's real grim this week. It's real dark. We shouldn't have finished on this story, I realize, in retrospect.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, guys. I love your faces. We will see you next week.
Fuck, we didn't even talk about ScoMo announcing a boat turn back on election day. Next week.
Next week. We'll get it.
Oh, there was the one sentence pitch. You probably are outraged just by hearing that. You're welcome.
He just did a piece of shit thing, and it was bad. And
last-ditch effort on his last day of being the piece of shit.
And then it's his last act as Prime Minister was to be a piece of shit, which is, who's surprised? Not me. See you guys next week.